Hey guys, John V here from PhoneArena. You're watching our in-depth video review of the Samsung Galaxy Tab 2 10.1, the successor to the Galaxy Tab 10.1 from last year. It's priced $50 less at $450 for the 16GB base version. And this guy has some similar specs to its predecessor, but Samsung's going towards the affordability route with this one, as opposed to some sort of high-spec one. So as we know by now, Samsung doesn't like to be upstaged by the competition. They made it known last year when they redesigned the Galaxy Tab 10.1 to be thinner than the iPad 2. But this time around, they're not as concerned as being the thinnest device out there in the market. It's a little bit thicker than its predecessor. It's 9.7 millimeters thick. It's still considered to be relatively streamlined by today's standards. Overall, though, the design of the Galaxy Tab 2 10.1 is pretty conventional. Nothing really stellar about it. Typical Samsung-made device, all plastic construction. You get this great plastic, pretty sturdy with its overall build quality, so we're pretty happy with that. But aside from that, it's pretty much a typical looking tablet. So there's no change in size with its display. It's still 10.1 inches WXGA, so that's 1280 by 800 pixels, which is actually the norm by now with most 10.1 inch tablets. And of course, it makes for some decent details. Every now and then you might see some pixelation, but when you're looking from far away, you hardly notice it. It's a PLS LCD panel, so you get some really natural looking colors, a good contrast ratio, also some acceptable viewing angles, so it's more than sufficient for this use. Just like before, we find a front-facing VGA camera right above the display. And both on the left and right edges of the tablet, you have the speakers. They're positioned a little bit higher than the sides, just so that it doesn't get away from holding the tablet. On the top edge, we find most of the ports. You have dedicated power button, the volume control key here, the raised good tactile feel, micro SD card slot hidden behind the plastic flap. You have a 3.5mm headset jack, and much like other Samsung tablets we've been seeing recently, it also comes with an IR blaster, which turns into a universal remote. And along the bottom edge, the only thing we find here is just the dock connection port, the proprietary one for charging data connectivity, and you also have a microphone too. And finally in the rear, there's a 3.2 megapixel fixed focus camera, no autofocus, and there's no flash as well. The interface on the Samsung Galaxy Tab 2 10.1 should be very familiar. It doesn't really deviate that much from its predecessor, the latest version of TouchWiz running on top of Android 4.0 Ice Cream Sandwich. And you can tell that just because the apps and widgets are broken down to two separate areas here. Of course, it has a lot of personalization with the live panel, so you got things like the weather, all the various hubs, media, music, game hubs, and some additional ones. And of course, just like any Android device, a lot of personalization. Being a TouchWiz device, you have the quick trace applications down here, so you could layer whatever you want on top of whatever you're doing. So for example, let's say you're running the web browser and you want to gain access to your email right away, you have the ability to do that. Now some are more practical than others, but for the most part we find barely using them that often. There are just some things that are a little bit better than others. Rather than finding it using the same NVIDIA dual-core Tegra 2 processor found with its predecessor, the Samsung Galaxy Tab 2 10.1 relies on a 1GHz dual-core TI OMAP 4430 processor with only 1GB of RAM, and to tell you the truth, it is extremely sluggish and slow with its performance. You can tell here with the live wallpaper, it exhibits a lot of choppiness with what we're doing here, and overall, it's not the fastest thing out there on the market, and the benchmark results clearly show that too. When it comes to typing on messages on the Samsung Galaxy Tab 2 10.1, you gotta be a little bit more cautious just because the layout of the keyboard itself is a little bit cramped compared to some other tablets out there. Nevertheless, you get a good amount of responsiveness, and we actually find using the portrait style keyboard to be a little bit better on the fingers, just because we're able to encompass the entire layout with our thumbs, and it's nice having the row of numbers right up top. Alternatively, there's also another way to inputting text. You could use the handwriting recognition application here, which does well too if you want to use the type of input. Luckily, if you're big into web browsing, you'll find the experience on the Samsung Galaxy Tab 2 more than adequate, just because it's able to handle most complex websites with relative ease. It maintains a good amount of responsiveness even with Flash content, and overall, it's just a pleasure to use. With the TouchWiz music player on the Samsung Galaxy Tab 2 10.1, it doesn't really deviate from previous versions. It's pretty conventional by today's standards. You can break it down to albums, artists, songs, all that fun stuff. You have some controls on the right-hand side. If you click on the album here, it gives you this 3D carousel-like mode where you can easily switch between songs right away. There are a host of different equalizer settings to better adapt to the genre of music you're playing. And as far as the audio quality, it's pretty good, strong, robust tones, and doesn't crackle at the loudest volume setting. As expected, the tablet runs high-definition videos with no problems. It offers support for a wide array of codecs, DivX, MPEG-4, H.264, and XVID. The one we have here is encoded in DivX, 1920 by 1080 resolution. You could tell a lot of good details. It's moving responsively, no slowdown lag, and overall, it's a pretty good experience. Sadly, there's no improvement whatsoever with the quality images produced by its 3.2 megapixel camera. In fact, it's only a fixed focus, and this time around it lacks an LED flash, unlike its predecessor. And the images tell the tale. Basically, very muddy looking with outdoor shots, very soft, hazy looking. Indoors under low lighting, you could pretty much forget about it just because its quality is diminished tremendously by a lot of noise and also graininess. At the same time, we're not thrilled by the tablet's 720p video recording quality. The only good thing is just the audio recording. It's clear, noise-free, but everything else is pretty much forgettable. You have some soft-looking details, a lot of artifacting when you're panning very quickly, and tends to look rather overexposed, so the quality is not the best. The model we're testing out here is Wi-Fi only, and as far as connectivity to a hotspot, it's average, not the strongest out there. We do notice a little bit of fluctuation every now and then, but we didn't have any drop connections within a fair amount of distance. Overseas, though, expected to have built-in wireless connectivity, so you have connection to cellular networks. One of the other bright spots about the Samsung Galaxy Tab 2 10.1 is that its 7,000 milliamp hour battery is able to provide us up to 2 days of normal usage, which is pretty good for a tablet with a 10.1 inch display nowadays. So even if you're a little bit more aggressive with your usage, you expect to have it easily last you a solid day. As a whole, the Samsung Galaxy Tab 2 10.1 comes off as being unimpressive. It doesn't quite have the same immaculate feel as the original one, and it's quite evident just because it's not as thin, nor does it have some vastly improved specs to make it a standout hit compared to the competition. And honestly, if you're looking for something that's a lot more budget friendly, you might want to look at the Samsung Galaxy Tab 2 7.0. Now that guy is only $250, and you get basically the same features as this guy here. Of course, you get the smaller display, but besides that, all the same functionality, and you're paying $200 less than this guy. So if you'd like to learn more about the Samsung Galaxy Tab 2 10.1, you can check out our website, guys, PhoneArena.com. This is John V. Thanks for watching.